God, that's another question. Is it am I actually getting like, are these compression artifacts from texture compression? And like I have the right number, but the oh man, I might be dealing with insanity here. As in, we've actually got stuff that's outside of the control of all these systems causing this. You know, like this looks wrong, but when you move this object, it's like, oh, well, you know, that's kind of correct, isn't it? And the texture compression stuff. God, okay. So I may not actually be going insane. I may be dealing with things that I was not expecting to have to deal with. I mean, how nuts is that? That it's not. The reason this stuff is screwed up is because of like texture compression, not because of my math. Because I'm setting stuff wrong. So let's go to this texture, and let's say you are a vector displacement map. Yeah, I think it's the right values. I just think what's happening is we've got like some sort of insanity thing going on with our our precision or whatever. Let's try really like a much higher quality map. 2048. See what happens. Yeah, and some of this stuff like those is because we're actually ending the water over here before it gets a black pixel. And the reason these rocks are all screwed up? Because there's not actually shore there. Because stuff's not actually inside of it over there. It's like we go under the water here, and there's actually like a hole in the middle there, so that's why there's gaps and stuff like that. Are there things coming out here that shouldn't be? It's hard to tell. I don't think so. I think it's actually correct. Yeah, we've got like this big distance sort of stuff going on all over the place. Alright, so I'm wondering if those lines there are they real? Are they real lines? That's what I expect. So I guess the other thing I could do is I could blur this texture a bit like. This is red, but it's all transparent. Alright, let's see. I'm going to want the color distance dot A to be 255. So I'm just gonna take it into Paint on that and just see what a blur would look like on it. Because I think that's all I really need to do is just then blur it, and it'll look okay. Alright, I just need a focus or something. So yeah, Twitch dashboard is totally busted, so I don't know how long I've been streaming. But I'm probably going to need to go get food and all that pretty shortly. So I want to probably... I'll remake this thing, this texture, and throw it in Paint, see what a blur looks like, and then do a blur and then clean it up, and then I'll probably be done for now. That's just because it's a white line. Like, that's just a distance. It's just, yeah, it's going to be what it is. Alright, so we'll construct that static height map. Well, it's broken for me. Alright, so we should be able to export this thing. So if we just did a blur like that on it, in like a 16 pixel blur, then it really smooths everything out, and I think gives us the shore pretty well. What if we did more, like a 32 blur? That also looks just fine. So how exactly does a Gaussian blur work? Like, because I just need to blur it. Am I just taking the pixels around it and blurring them? You know, just averaging them together, or is there a specific blurring effect that I should be working on? This is a pretty good explanation. So the blur can be understood by taking pixels, the average value of its surrounding pixels, and well, is there a nice little formula to calculate it? So is it just the distance? See if there's already a blur formula or something like that. Well, why don't we just do shitty blur? Instead of doing an actual Gaussian blur, let's do like a real crappy blur that we can apply. Alright, so let's do like 4. Yeah, these X and Y things. Equals what? X plus Y times resolution Y. Equals current distance times 3. And let's just do let's see, we want width equals gosh, alright. Inner X equals -1, and X is less than or equal to 1. Alright, so if inner X is less than 0, or inner Y is less than 0, or X is greater than or equal to what? The resolution X, or Y is greater than or equal to resolution X, resolution Y. Continue, otherwise added weight plus equals the distance output sub this thing, and added total plus equals 1.01. So added weight height equals by total, and then we just do that. This is our distance buffer for this. Alright, well, we'll see how that goes. Just a really crappy blur. Current distance, this is going to be the distance buffer sub I. It may be that kind of a worse blur algorithm will actually do a better job for some of this stuff, because we just want to make it fuzzy. We don't really want to make it. We don't really want to make it very good. We just want to, very wide brushstroke, smooth it out. So we don't need to worry about being mathematically correct on any of this. We just need to smash it with a hammer, pretty much. We just need to see which size hammer we need. And let's see. Square? What was 20? So we'll see how that looks. And maybe we need to actually do a couple passes of blurring. Like blur once, blur it again, you know, run it through the ringer a few times as opposed to taking a bigger square chunk, just so we don't get any weird floating point incremental math errors that add up the number gets too big and crap goes to hell. And that didn't look like it blurred anything. It's because it didn't blur anything. Alright, that should be better. Alright, so we'll just throw a bad blur on it. Let's see, are we actually distance buffer, inner x, y, and all that stuff, y plus y squared? We should be skipping pixels we're not using, or we can't use. I like that. That looks good. That looks like not shit. Hey, that's what I wanted. Yeah, alright. That's totally what we wanted. Excellent, I'll be right back. Yeah, what a saga. I never would have anticipated that the reason why a lot of the jaggy stuff was all sorts of screwed up was because of the texture compression on the texture. God, you know, like when you're writing to an array of F colors a certain value, and you're like, well, I passed it in the material, and it's just like, God. That's just graphics programming experience that I don't have, you know? It's like, why is it messed up? Ah, because you actually had it right. I didn't even think about the texture compression artifacts that would happen. Alright. And that's definitely the kind of blur I want. You know, it's nice and smooth, and that's it. That's all we want. Alright, so let's fix things. Yeah, let's fix things. Gosh, alright. 6.5, alright. I think I'll go for another 20 minutes or so to get all this sorted. So what we need to do is start cleaning up all this garbage that we wrote in here. So we don't need these like diagonal steps and all this other garbage here. We're going to use the distance buffer, that's fine. We do not need the maximum shore distance, or do we? Yeah, it's an optimization on it. It should actually be fine. We don't want the diagonal step. Distance buffer's fine. Output is fine. Output. Are we actually using the output? Yeah, we're using the output to look up the height. Okay, so no diagonal step, no propagation. So let's get rid of all this garbage. Heights, distances, direction, shore distance, X step, Y step. The diagonal step needs to be removed. Take that out. Alright, I'm going to need a blur radius. And blur radius is going to be an integer that gets passed in. Alright. 132 blur radius is going to be we'll just have it be a number, and if you want to mess with it, you can. Alright, and we need to go to our editor utils, and we need this create texture 2D sort of thing on there. So it's like text params dot. Let's see if they've got the texture compression settings on this thing. Yeah, they do. It's just compression settings. So let's see if we can actually use it. Texture compression settings. so we're going to need this texture compression. We're going to set that to by default to TC_default. Alright, and inside of this function up here, we're going to pass in the texture compression settings. Alright, so texture factory, what do we call it? Texture compression. So we'll do that, and I think we also need to change the text. Do we have the texture settings? Alright, so we can set that. So we can set those compression settings right in there, and we'll be good to go. Unlock the map, we got that set, and all the rest. Alright, so let's go ahead and add these things to our header file. And the other question is going to be, can we even set this thing? And let's give it a default to TC default. And let's see if we can actually build that in there and call that from Blueprint Land. I'm concerned because texture compression settings enum does not have an E on the front and stuff like that, so I assume that it's not set up properly for Blueprint Land. If that's true, then I'll have to make my own enum which mirrors their enum, which has things on it which I can use, which is stupid, but we'll see. See if it has to be stupid. And I don't think we actually set up our physics utils. We didn't add the blur here. Oh, we did. Alright, diagonal step. Yeah, we can get rid of all this. Texture compression settings is not a member of F create texture 2D parameters. Oh, hell yes it is. Okay, it's called compression settings. Maybe one of these days I won't just be raging the entire time, just all angry about everything, and I'll actually be able to do things and be calm. And Twitch still hasn't gotten my emote through. I guess it's never gonna happen. I'm never gonna get an emote. Maybe I need to get Adam to draw it for me. They looked at it and they're like, nah, no, we can't have this crap. Maybe I need to change the name. I'll just go do that. I'll just go change the name. Maybe I'll do it later. Alright, so supposedly I can actually add all this stuff, so let's go ahead and try that. Let's set up the blueprint so it creates the distance map using the correct actual stuff. And we can change the blur. Alright, so test water, we're going to have this fill height array. Blur radius is going to be in there, so let's make a blur radius. I guess shore blur. It's going to be an integer. So we're going to default it to 32 and have it go from like, 0 to 32. I think it's reasonable. Alright, so this is how blurry the shoreline distance is. So that'll blur that up, and then we got this create texture, and for the height map texture we're going to actually save it as a displacement map, vector displacement map. Yeah. And let's see it actually in action then. What a concept! What a concept, it actually works. Is it a vector displacement map? Yeah. Alright, I'm gonna go set it to default and see if the default texture compression actually looks okay. See, the default texture compression looks like garbage. Look at all that. Well, let's do the constructed height map thing and see if it fixes it. Totally fixed it. Awesome. That is really cool. Well, then that means we're slowly but surely making progress. What in the hell is going on with that? What? That's pretty cool. Okay, so what's going on with that material? I'm gonna have to go look at that real quick. If we have a vector displacement map on here for this thing. Oh, we made it translucent, didn't we? It was something like that. Yeah, translucent. Let's make it opaque. Or... no. It should be translucent. Why is it all of a sudden doing crazy stuff with that? Is that because it's a... is that literally because the texture is a... A vector displacement map? Let's see. Yeah, if it's a... No, it's not. What is going on with that water material then? I have no idea why that would render like that. There's something going on with like the Z or something? I have no clue. So if we make this material opaque at least, let's take a look at it. Yeah, the opaqueness of the material does actually change it. Well, that's kind of nuts. I wonder why it does that. That might cause issues later. And this is actually lit. Let's see if I can mess around with like subsurface versus not subsurface. Well, it may be that this waterfall is actually correct. It's just there's something going on with it. Like, let me see if I change the water opacity. Yeah, that's just broken. This is the weirdest damn thing I've ever seen. I would not expect the... It's like the depth buffer's just screwed. You know, like depth buffer just isn't working with this thing. I wonder why that is. Like, this is a translucent object with a subsurface shading model. It's treated as two-sided, and it's using surface forward shading. Well, let's see. If we change this other thing to subsurface, and we use the surface forward shading, and go ahead and apply that to the water, does it work properly together with the waterfall material if it does that? Doesn't look like it. Let's see if there's a masked object. Let's default lit. If that does anything. So it looks like a masked object works, but a translucent object does not work. facts behind this. Probably has something to do with how the colors are combined. It's like what kind of blending it's actually using, I would guess. So how do we change the blending? Well, let's see. Let's see if we can actually apply this and see if we can kind of jiggle the handle on this. On this piece here. So let's see if this translucent blend mode actually works, or if there's just like, well, you can't have two translucent objects on top of each other and have it look at all good, or there's some other reason why two translucent objects on top of each other just looking like trash. Well, why don't I just Google it real quick? This would be two translucent objects can't render over each other. Unreal. Transparent materials render in front of closer translucent materials. So basically what's happening is it's screwed, and it's screwed because of translucent order sort priority stuff. And it looks like there are just bugs as late as December of 2000. They both need to be using translucency and have separate translucency setting with the material properties. Depending on which actors you want to render, you need to set the translucent sort priority. Otherwise you're toast. So yeah, we have this like big translucent water, and if we want to render the waterfall, what we have to do is get the waterfall to render after this. So we'd have to like set the sort priority of the water object to be something else. So we'd have to, for this to look correct, I need to move the water behind it. Well, even that doesn't work. That's so stupid. It's toast. It doesn't work, does it? It's if it renders at all. That's so stupid.